Hello, and welcome to Rimworld. Today we're playing with a mod that adds kitsunes, or foxgirls, to the game called Revias. But our colonists are going to be much different than their bloodthirsty and tribal brethren, for these girls have a dream of touching the stars. How Revians work is they can sacrifice prisoners and corpses to the god Skarn in exchange for bloodstones. If they consume enough of these bloodstones, they can grow extra tails, which increases manipulation and reduces damage taken, along with some other added benefits as you get higher up in the tiers. They can have up to 9 tails, and the cost of bloodstones increases exponentially. All of them have an increased metabolic rate, a forced bloodthirsty trait, and all are female. They're poor planters and miners and have custom backstories that disable a lot of jobs and makes it harder to find good researchers, planters, and builders. We're playing on a Revia-only planet, which means no men and no children. Without further ado, let's get into it. Let's run it back, baby. Day 1 again. Our new colonists are Leopard, Verdant, and Sunset. Leopard is a good melee combatant, miner, and builder. Apparently, her tails caused her body purist trait to activate, giving her a debuff, so I had to use some console commands to remove the trait, and unfortunately, she lost all of her tails in the process, which isn't a great start. Verdant is an amazing shot, planter, crafter, and cook. All in all, an amazing colonist. And Sunset is a doctor, researcher, and also pretty good at construction. We took up residence in an ancient ruins and made it into an everything room. Putting all of our random stuff, workshops, and fixing up the large steels actually raised the room to impressive, which helped manage the early game moods. It also gave extra buffs for the impressive dining room and impressive rec room. Using these steels is 100% OP, and I recommend everyone do it for early game. Aside from random gazelle attacks, the beginning was surprisingly smooth. We named our faction the Dark Justiciaries. Yeah. In our settlement Ash Fortress, though I hope it doesn't become literal Ash like last time. And no, I'm not accepting bug quests again. I grew some of that good puff despite the movement debuff because 1, Stone Foxgirls sounds hilarious, and 2, beer brewing caused a lot of steel and heating. I was considering doing Psychite tea as well, but it requires too high a planting skill, and I was afraid that if I started making flake for money, they could go on a Psychite binge and store enough flake to kill them. Eventually, I decided to move our dining room and kitchen out of the barracks, taking over an adjacent ancient ruins, which was already impressive due to the polished floors. We got electricity fairly quickly this time, as I just had Sunset basically sit there and bash her head into the research table all day, and we got air conditioning and batteries a few days later. This time an animal hunting attack wouldn't claim the lives of our colonists and would become dinner, which look how much more impressive our food reserves look starting fall. I learned my lesson the hard way. We got our first basic power set up and could finally have lights instead of torches. Next on the research was fuses. This was from RT mods and allows you to mitigate the ZT event, which before the mod I thought I was just structuring my power grids wrong, so I really appreciate this mod. It took a while to get our first Revian raid. It was only 1, but she had a scary melee skill. I had the girls gear up and take her down, and unfortunately Sunset lost a couple of her toes in the skirmish. That bastard. Let's sacrifice her to Skarn. Oh, and that new dining room floor I wanted to put in? Yeah, that's never getting done. But we finally have smoke leaf joints, which will level up cooking slowly, but it will. Just in time for another raid too. An old Revian is looking to kill us, and she has a lot of tails. Sunset once again got a boo-boo, and I captured the raider and put her in the dining room. Apparently Sunset's left leg was bit. These girls are brutal. Our prisoner immediately went for a prison break, so she was easily put down with a single shot. We got another eclipse just in time for Revian religious ceremonies to be researched. Now this will allow us to build a blood sigil, which will let us sacrifice prisoners instead of just corpses. Sacrificing a prisoner during an eclipse allows Revians to regenerate lost limbs. It didn't work in my playtesting, so it was a perfect time to find out. I had them quickly construct a blood sigil in the dining room and sacrifice the prisoner, and now Emerald's got her big toe back. I mean, with a major scar, but still better than nothing. I sold some smoke leaf joints and let the girls do chores for a few days while Sunset researched machining. On an art piece, it depicted Sunset's village being attacked by goblins. I didn't even know goblins were in the game, and I went and looked and they aren't in the game, but a goblin run sounds really cool. I absolutely love the art system in this game, and I was just reading the descriptions for a bit. In one of my casual runs, one of my colonists' grave was inscribed with a depiction of him hurting my only Revian, which was just brutal to put on a gravestone. Watch out! Buffalo! Oh, it's fine. I bought a cow and a bull from passing trader. Another raid. The raider was a pretty good colonist, so we'd want to capture them if we could. Back to the dining room with you. Cold snaps no problem with parkas, food, and heaters. And we started on gunsmithing, then prosthetics. The colonist fell out of the sky, Stone Shatterer. And damn, look at that social skill. Unfortunately, she would be leaving us. We definitely don't want to upset the Dark Enforcers or Space Refugees faction. They're like normal Revia, but with guns and flak armor. Silly prisoner. This omnipotent god sees all. There's no escape. The Guts Marauders want their prisoner back, but that's gonna be pretty hard when you're dead. And Stone Shatterer finally joined. She's greedy, so we'll have to construct some bedrooms. I've got plenty of art and cool furniture from the Furniture Extended mod, so it shouldn't be too hard to get impressive bedrooms for everyone. Great. Toxic fallout. Looks like we're staying inside. Even the turkeys are upset. Come on, Verdant. It's just a turkey. Come on, please. You got this. There you go. May your rice harvest be botched and may plague cometh on your cows. Wait, is Sunset missing a leg? When did that happen? But hey, we got geothermal power, so who cares? Now that we have time, we can figure out how to make a rug and get to constructing this rather lavish room for Emerald. Once rugs were finished, I wanted to get work attire researched, even though I wouldn't really end up using it. It has some amazing buffs, but we don't really have enough people to designate, like, civilians, and I hate micromanaging apparel, to be completely honest. It took an unreasonably long time for the toxic fallout to clear, but a Revia fell out of the sky named Solstice. I'd like to imagine that this was the same Solstice that was kidnapped in the last run, but that's probably not true. We got some geothermal power set up, which should solve our power issues, but Smokey the Bear wasn't too happy about this, we had to put him down. It was time to make a prosthetic leg for Sunset before I forget. I really wish there was more of an indication that a pawn is missing an entire limb. It's just like, oh well, I guess I'm just gonna hobble around. It was also time to build up some walls around the base. I just used wood for now, which would be better than nothing, and it would also still funnel enemies, but they are very prone to being set on fire. We'd have to make a kill box later, as I'm kind of bad at the game. We had another transport crash from the Dark Enforcers again. Boom rat raid. Not a problem. We learned how to make flak armor, but didn't have nearly enough components to start making it for our colonists, so I put an order to mine the exposed veins. But before we could finish that, we had a raid from the Guts Marauders. These guys have been literally nothing but trouble. Luckily, there wasn't enough for them to be too much of a problem, but I still feel bad that our one-legged researcher has to take the brunt of the damage. Which, speaking of, let's fix that, and finally give Sunset a leg. Just as I was making a second bedroom, we had another raid from the Guts Marauders, which we were able to put down quite easily. But the more frequent raids meant that we were probably going to have to bulk up our defenses. We quickly tended to the downed raiders, and one of them actually got up to fight, but was instantly killed. But what does it matter, we got 2 prisoners out of it, and we put them in one of our unfinished bedrooms. Anaconda Slayer and Obsidian Crusher. You're gonna like it here very much once you get off the dirt floor. While these new raiders were being brainwashed, Sunset actually finished microelectronics, which unlocks the comm console and gets us to more mid-game technology with the high-tech research bench. I also thought it was high time to start researching Revenant weapons, as the shred cannon and the literal 40k chainsword looks kinda sick. Unfortunately, as Leopard was feeding our prisoners, Anaconda went berserk and started attacking her, even downing her. Luckily, Sunset was at the research bench not far away, as she should be at the research bench at all times, and was able to put an end to this madness. Or so I thought, as the other prisoner went berserk and had to be put down as well. Stay put. Unfortunately, one of our prisoners would die from an infection, but she was missing an arm anyways. I hadn't noticed that she'd lost it in the combat, so it wasn't that much of a loss. And for all of her work with the prisoners, I decided to reward Leopard with her own beautiful bedroom. Look how soundly she sleeps. We had another raid, and it was time to prep the girls for combat once again. After an incredibly bloody massacre, I decided to start making fine meals with all the milk we were getting from our cows. And Anaconda must have heard about these new amenities, as she decided to join our colony, which also means we can turn her prison room into a proper bedroom. Not for her, of course, she's new. And look at Anaconda making some joints for everyone. I can tell that she's gonna fit in quite well around here. We didn't do much for the next couple days as I waited for some stone cutting to get done, so I accepted a request to take out some gut marauders in exchange for some plasteel and a small venometric power cell, which means unlimited free power. We finished advanced revving equipment, but unfortunately these recipes require plasteel and chem fuel, which we didn't have yet. So I decided to research gas operation before we sent a caravan to do the quest and make some chain shotguns. I sent Sunset and Leopard out to the camp, though we didn't have much food and Leopard got sick from food poisoning, so we had to camp out in some ruins until Leopard was feeling better. As we slowly made our way closer to the camp, trying not to be spotted, a waste pack infestation spawned. We'd have to be careful not to wake them, or it would cost us our lives. Sunset is becoming quite the fighter though, taking down both these raiders with a single hit. Well, that was easier than I thought, and we got a reward, plasteel and that new power cell. Unfortunately, shortly after they returned, a defoliator ship crashed nearby with a scyther. However, I feel this would be a great test for our new LMG. The LMG and the chain shotgun did their jobs and turned the scyther into a nice piece of scrap metal and the defoliator ship into some useful advanced components and more plasteel. Though we had no time to celebrate. There was an infestation in our barracks. Little time to prepare, it's a wonder that this actually went well. One of the problems we've been having is that we don't have anything to sell to passing traders, and with microelectronics, we're going to have access to trade ships soon. So I decided to research drug production, planning to eventually start producing flake to sell for cash. But while we were waiting, we got a quest to save a captured prisoner named Red, and we decided to send out a caravan to bring her back. So Leopard, Verdant, and Anaconda set out, this time with enough food to last for their journey. We arrived shortly after and quickly put down Red's captor and freed her. She wasn't a very good colonist. Terrible at combat, but had a burning passion for construction, medical, and animals, so she'll have to do. Plus, we could always use some help cleaning and hauling. Shortly after, we had a larger raid from the Guts Marauders. Luckily, they don't have any guns, but their knives are especially pointy, and we don't have any armor yet. Anaconda went down, and unfortunately Leopard's right eye was cut out. Though we had plenty of downed prisoners we could recruit. We only decided to capture one though, Ocean Alligator Slayer. We could always use another doctor and fighter. Passing trader came by and I decided to buy a steel shredder, that 40k chainsaw I was talking about, and some medicine to deal with the mounting infections, which unfortunately would be in vain as Anaconda wouldn't make it. We made her a grave over by the dining area, but before we could bury her, we had a pack of manhunting panthers show up. After brutally slaughtering them, we could finally put Anaconda to rest, which I had Leopard carry out. Given the recent death and frequent raids, I decided to start planning out a kill box. I wouldn't make it like super crazy, just some turrets at the back in a large concrete arena with a small maze to delay the raids. And yes, I do realize that there is one wall missing and that maze is not properly set up. I do wish I spent more time setting this up, but I usually don't work with turrets. I also usually don't get this far in the game. While I was planning this out though, our prisoner went berserk and had to be promptly put down. A transport pod had crashed not far from us carrying Eagle Bearer. She was a good cook and had a good social skills, so I decided to capture her and put her with Alligator. Alligator decided to join, which is great, as I'd prefer Verdant to spend less time cooking and more time crafting and planting. Though before we could finish our kill box, we had our first mech hive raid. 2 Militors, a Lancer, and a Scyther. This would be absolute hell. Or so I thought, as thankfully it went relatively well. but I did notice that that LMG didn't have enough range for this kill box, which could be a problem in the future. We finally got Eagle to join. You must have heard about our impressive defeat of the mech wave. I decided to launch a mining program into the mountain and found an absolute ton of steel, which is very much appreciated. I eventually wanted to turn these into bedrooms, and so we'd have some more people with more of a straight shot to the kill box if we decided to put more buildings in between, which I decided to plan out a new hospital and prison next to the kill box, so we'd have some easy access to heal our wounds or capture prisoners. I also decided to set up a lab with an advanced research bench and also started setting up an orbital trade beacon and a comms console. I also wanted some more recreation, like a billiards table and a poker table, now that we have a lot more people. And with all these improvements, I feel like our base is kind of coming together. I'm feeling a strong path to how I want this to look, and I eventually want to move everything down to the lower section of my base and also move my workshop and dining room down there, mostly because I've outgrown my small kitchen and freezer and I want a much larger area for them to be able to hang out. I also decided to make some plate armor for our melee combatants, as they're the ones that usually soak up all the damage. With our new lab, we could start researching multi-analyzers to try and get over the tribal debuff for some of the earlier technologies that don't require it. When we got our first trade ship, I realized it was time to start growing some psychoid and manufacturing flake. This literally took me way too long to do. I should have been manufacturing flake so long ago because it sells for so much money. It was also time to improve our hospital with some sterile tiles, and I felt that it was high time to start making some rugs that we'd researched a long time ago. I let them work on all this, just sitting back for a time, finishing off the multi-analyzers research, researching autocannon turrets and medicine production, as well as constructing the multi-analyzer. But I'd realized that it's been quiet for a really long time. It's been quiet for months. We haven't had a single raid, and all that was about to change. Thank you so much for watching. Please like the video if you enjoyed and subscribe to see part 2. I'm relatively new to Rimworld and to YouTube in general, so leave me a comment telling me what you'd like to see or if I should change anything about how I make these videos. Well, that's it. See ya. Chaotic out.